Good morning, everyone. I hope that this message finds you well and in good health. I know it's been a moment since I have recorded something, but trust me, he is definitely speaking. I think that there was a moment where I tried various times to either record a video or quickly want to jump on and say something that he was saying to me, because I've watched a lot of people around me lately kind of struggle. So of course I wanted to get on and encourage everybody, and he said no, not yet, and he had me hold on. So this morning I'm coming to you sitting on the beach of the Atlantic Ocean. God is good, and I wanted to share with you, because he told me I can now, what he has been saying to me. It's so real that I didn't have any pen and paper with me, so he actually had me sit down and take a shell and write it in the sand. Crazy, right? But that is just how he works. So there's a couple of things that he wanted me to share with you guys, so bear with me. One, he says that the struggle is necessary in this season. The struggle is necessary. The struggle that you are enduring in this season, for those of you who feel like old things are trying to surface, or old mindsets are trying to come back, or just old things, and you're struggling, or you're struggling with things that that somebody may not know about. He says that the struggle is indicative of your growth. The way he showed it to me, he says there's a place where your flesh and your spirit man meet. Right? That means that at one point your flesh was ruling up here and your spirit man may have been here. Well, the more that you've been doing the work, guess what? They kind of equal out. And in that place where they equal out is where you're experiencing the greatest struggle, for several reasons. One, because you're about to break places that you've never been. In other words, you're about to go to heights that you've never reached, right? You're about to experience his glory in ways that you have yet to experience them. So you're getting resistance from the enemy, of course, because he doesn't want you to hit the next level. And one thing that I have realized is that when we find ourselves in a place that we're struggling, it is because God is right on the other side of that victory for us. He is pushing us, encouraging us, and he's like, come on, keep pushing, keep moving, keep pushing forward, because there's something on the other side of this struggle. And a lot of times, and I've taught this before, because this is something that he gave me that just has helped keep me, that the struggle is indicative that what you were once comfortable in when you lived in the world, or lived in ignorance of of God's expectations of you, now you're struggling with what you were once comfortable with. That is maturity, saints. If you're a single and you've been just kicking it and sleeping around, hooking up with somebody, and it never bothered you before, but now you're like, this is just not what I should be doing. Well, guess what? He's maturing you. He's taking you from places where sin had you bound and comfortable, and he is replacing the stronghold of sin with the stronghold of his presence. And that is amazing. It is amazing what the blood of Christ will do. It'll take you from a place where you were full of sin and in bondage, but take you to a place where you are in the stronghold of his sanctity. So he is allowing you to see the demarcation of his bloodline. Yeah, the demarcation of his bloodline. There's an evident place in your life right now that the struggle is indicative of the demarcation of his bloodline. And so that was the first thing. So if you're struggling, be encouraged. It is just truly allowing you to see that you're no longer in the comfortable places that you once were in, and God is definitely moving you and growing you. So the struggle is indicative of your maturity and your forward progress, and it is necessary. So embrace it. Go back into the book of James. When you're hit with various trials, is because what is God trying to do? He's trying to expose your current faith life so that he can build something in you, patience and endurance, so that when he presents you and brings you forth, you will lack nothing. So that was point number one he wanted me to share with you. Point number two, and this one he gave me a couple of days ago. I was walking along the beach, and the further I walked, there was places where the water kind of made the sand a road, and the water had a path where it did not naturally have one. And I saw one that was small, and then I saw one that was bigger, and then I walked down thinking I was going to walk further down than I actually could. Why? Because I came to a place where the water had created looked like almost a small river, almost like a tributary. It literally created a place that literally went from the ocean and through the sand and through the back of where some trees were. So I started off with seeing a small one, and I'll have to show you guys pictures of this later. But there's a place where I started off when I first started walking that the water just, was pushing past the sand a little bit. And then I kept going till I could go no further because the water had created a whole new path. And God says in this season, please don't miss this, in this season, your gift, your gifts, your anointing, what he has placed in you is making room for you. I don't think you understood what I said. He says your gift, your gifts, your anointing, what he has placed within you is making room for you. Some of you might be seeing it because the water's starting to erode the sand, and it might be in the starting process. Despise not the day of small beginnings. But the further you walk with him, you will see that the enemy is not going to be able to continue the same attack. That is so good, because the room that God is making for your gift is going to literally create a whole new stream. It's going to create a new flow. It's going to open new doors. And he is saying that what he creates through you, the gift that he has placed in you will make room for you and will create a whole brand new path. You got to go back and watch the resistance training video that where I think it's the last one that I did, where God says that the reason that you are getting all of this resistance is because you are called to be a generational curse breaker in your family. So he says your gift is making room for you in ways that you can't even imagine. So do not despise small beginnings. Do not grow weary in well-doing. Continue to pursue what God has told you to do, just like Noah did in building that ark when nobody even realized or understood what he was doing. Continue to pursue what God has placed in you. Be faithful to God more than you are faithful to the world, and he will make paths for you that you have not even began to imagine. Thirdly, he is saying that he is, this one was so good. He is mending the broken places. He is mending the broken places of your life. When I first got here, I posted a picture of a handful of broken shells. And when I was here in Myrtle Beach the last time on a retreat with the change retreat, the intense version, with my sister, Lady Charlotte Lewis, we were talking about how God uses those broken pieces, how people collect the broken shells, but we want to buy shells that look good. And once you embrace the brokenness and you're okay in who you are in him, he is going to do something new. He says he is mending the broken pieces. If you've given him the broken pieces of your heart, your life, your mind, whatever it might be, he says, one day I'm going to turn those broken pieces into something that is whole, a mosaic piece of art, he says. And as he was saying that to me, it was crazy because I was walking, I think it was maybe Sunday morning. I was walking Sunday morning, and while he was telling me that he was getting ready to mend the broken pieces, I started to find shells that were whole shells with beautiful distinct color, beautiful marks of erosion and beautiful scratches and cracks in them, but they were whole. And he said at that moment, every broken piece that you've given to me, I am creating a mosaic of my work. So despise not the process. People don't like the process of being broken. There's some things that he is trying to deconstruct in you in order to clear away the site of that deconstruction so that he can begin to build. But guess what he's going to use to build? Every experience that you've had, every broken place that you've had, every part of the messes in your life that you weren't sure how you were going to get back from, he is going to build a ministry in you that you have yet to even begin. I'm excited. This is truly marking a new season. I was in the car the other day and he was telling me that there are quarters, and this is literally the second quarter of the year before we head into our halfway mark, and he is literally telling us that he is doing it. You just have to trust him. And then what he definitely said, because he is doing it and because there is fruit and there is evidence of his work in you, whether you see it or not. If you've been doing this and enduring the process, there's evidence. Trust me. It might be dark, but you're providing light for other people, and people are telling you, oh my God, you look great and this is wonderful, and you feel like, oh my God, I don't know if I can endure this anymore. He says that's okay. In that process, he says that's where I'm doing my work. And he also says that you have to understand that your job right now is to continue to stand firm, and to resist the enemy. Stand firm on what he's promised you. Resist the enemy, and what will happen? The enemy will flee. So you have to stay in your words. You have to stay accountable. This is something that he continues to say. You can't do this on your own accord. You have to stay in your word. You have to stay accountable. You have to continue to resist. You have to put on the full armor of God. Every bit of mindset that he is maturing in you, you have to begin to embrace and use those tools of prayer. Prayer. Communicate with him. He's speaking. He wants to tell you. He wants to take you to a place where you have not yet been. So he says you have to be able to stand firm in his word, resist the enemy, continue to pray. And he says in this season, he wants you to take your eyes off of the feelings of what you feel, but study the tactic of the enemy. A lot of you guys are feeling like you're tripping over the same thing and over familiar spirits. He says because you haven't studied the tactic of the enemy. He says if you start to understand how the enemy attacks you, then you understand how to be able to start to combat that. You'll be able to get ahead of it instead of trying to find yourself being picked up off the ground. So what does that mean? He says if you study the tactics of the enemy is not all-knowing. The enemy is not omnipresent. He's not omniscient. Only God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all ever present, right? So the enemy has to go off of patterns, and until we break the generational patterns that have been taking us into negative places, the enemy is going to continue to do the same thing. So if you get to a place and you find yourself every once in a while you feel depressed, or you feel anxious, or you feel overwhelmed, that might be a pattern and a tactic of the enemy. If you get to a place and then you get like relationships start to get just like communication goes bad, or something happens in your relationships every so often, guess what? That might be a tactic of the enemy. If you seem to get sick every so often, and you don't know what, or the doctors may not even understand where it's coming from, guess what? That might be a tactic of the enemy. If you seem to be revolving through jobs, or you seem to be struggling with self-esteem, or whatever those things are, if there's a pattern, it might be an attack of the enemy, and you have to understand his tactics so that therefore you can go ahead and see him before he comes, and as he tries, you can go ahead and raise up the standard of God as the enemy tries to raise up his fight. So, and he says, while I'm allowing you to go through the struggle, while I'm making room for you, and while I'm mending the broken places of your life, he says, stand firm, resist the enemy, and begin to study the tactics of the enemy so that therefore you can go ahead and prepare for when the enemy comes, because we're promised struggles, and we're promised the tribulations, and we're promised the attack, but we're also promised that he gives us peace that this world cannot give us, and therefore this world cannot take it. He gives us peace that surpasses understanding, and love that surpasses all knowledge, and the intimacy with him that he is trying to grow within us is so great, and I'm excited. And then he says in this season what he is doing, he is maturing us. He is taking us from the present milk that you have been sustaining on to that steak meal that you're working your way up to. There's something about babies in development, right? Natural first. I have a godson that is just a couple months old. And then I have a couple of nieces that actually vary through ages. And you see the developmental process, right? My godson right now, we're just getting ready to start him on cereal and baby food. And he's just now gaining that. But he has been surviving simply off of formula. And guess what? We don't give him from formula onto steak. No, it's a process. It is a process. So if you're not eating a steak dinner yet, don't worry, because if you're comparing yourself to somebody else's journey who might already be eating steak, if you try to eat that steak, you might choke on it. He says there's a process. Some of you are going from the milk, the Similac, onto baby food. Some of you guys are going from the baby food onto solids. Some of you guys are going from solids to being able to eat a multi-course meal. And some of you guys are getting ready to head into your steak eating season. I'm excited because I really believe that this marks a second quarter place. And in that second quarter place, family, do me a favor. Go ahead and evaluate what you've been doing. How far from your goals have you strayed, or are you on course? What has God told you? Is he telling you the same thing? Are you on trajectory to complete what he's asked you? Not your resolutions, but what he has asked you to do. Remember, this is the Lazarus effect here. So if you want to see the dead things that you know that God has called to come back to you or come back into fruition, then you're going to have to move the rocks. You're going to have to endure the shaking. speaking. You're going to have to do the work. So take this moment before we hit the midway parts of the year and do the work. Reevaluate, check in with God, make sure that you haven't strayed off course. And until we meet again, I hope that this word has blessed you. I hope that the blessings of God pursue you. Do me a favor, please, 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 please share this video. I thank you guys for your support. Make sure you go to the YouTube channel. It's Maria Bonner. Has my picture on there. Subscribe, share it with people. Share this video so that someone else might be encouraged. But most of all, continue to send me messages. Continue to send comments. Continue to let me know that this is feeding your soul, because it is encouraging. Sometimes I just need to be reminded that God is definitely doing what He is doing in the lives of those, that He is taking my mess, my journey, my ministry, or what He has placed in me and using it for the greater glory. So until we meet again, may the blessings of God continue to pursue you. Be blessed.